let's say, giving me the opportunity again to tackle this, let me say, this very controversial, very old contested issues, which is really the antibiotic treatment of CBPP. My name is Mamadou, and of course, I'm at the moment coming from FOECTAD. I'm based here in Accra, Ghana. This is also really the let's say the menu of my presentation. You know, before going into the main menu, which is really the subject of this presentation, I will give you some background here and there. You know, really, as I said, really, this is a very complex, very sensitive issue, and I felt that we may need a lot of background to refresh your mind and also to guide you on some principles that on some of the questions that really I'm going to raise all along this this presentation. And at the end, I will give you my personal point of view. Again, I repeat this will be really my personal point of view, and hoping that at the end you will really have some take-home message to go with, and so that really we can see how we can go about these very complex issues. Chairs, I'm sorry, maybe I may go a little bit beyond the time that is allocated to me, because again, as I said, this is really a very complex and very difficult subject. So that really, and I will give you here and there some background. So I will go a little bit beyond, but believe me, I will not abuse your kindness. On the background, just I'm not going really to spend my time on this slide. You know, this background is known by what is CBP. Everybody knows it, but really, I would like to just highlight on this picture number 6. Okay, which is really the sequestra. This is what we call the pulmonary sequestra, meaning that animals that have these lesions are called carrier animals. But again, remember, this lesion, this chronic lesion is really, to me, it is really a normal healing process of the CBPP by itself. Being treated or not, animals with CBPP tend at the end of the disease ready to develop this carrier, this lesion. But all the issues, all the controversy, all the debate is really surrounding about on this lesion. So please keep in mind on this lesion number 6. Just to remind you on the control strategies that are being officially now allowed. You know, I think Charles has already preempted some of these prophylaxis. You know, the first one is the sanitary prophylaxis based on the restriction, quarantine, slaughtering, and compensation. Folks, we should admit that it is difficult really to achieve these prerequisites, as I showed here, in most African countries, especially in the Sahelian countries. The second measure, you know, that is put in place is the medical prophylaxis based on the vaccines that we are using now, either T144, either T1SR. But again, we should admit that to be effective, it has been said that, you know, to be effective, comprehensive, and sustained vaccine campaign over several years is required. This statement has been there for a long time. But again, we should admit that this has proved very difficult to achieve in most African countries. We should admit there are some failures. Question number 1, what is the place of antibiotics? I think this is really the topic of this presentation. To answer this, I will say just, you know, this has been dismissed right from the beginning. Why? On some prejudgment, non-scientifically and objectively founded. 2, many reasons that have been put forward. Antibiotic treatment may predispose infected cattle to develop chronic carrier. Remember this picture that I showed you at the beginning. and chronic carrier spread the disease by reactivation of secretory lesions. I think, again, as I said, this has never been proved so far, as far as I know. Dr. William Amonfu is in. He may also maybe come in, I'm sure. But for the time being, I have not seen any literature in the literature, any publication indicating that sequestra can be the source of transmitting the disease. Again, remember, this is really treated or not. This is really normal way that animal, end up when, having the CBPP. Okay. But again, please, I brought here three things. As I said, formation of sequestra is a natural healing process. It's a defense mechanism. It is known. This is how really mycoplasma mycoides defend themselves when facing the immune system or any other factors. Second, lack of scientific data to substantiate the reactivation of sequestra lesions. I could not find it. And third, existence of scientific data that contest this theory. I think somewhere Hezron has mentioned this publication from Masiga, an old publication that really tried to see if they can really transmit the disease experimentally by really trying to reactivate these sequestra, but they failed. Meaning that I think so far this has not proven very to be true. Okay. Again, there is really this controversy, this really paradox in the policies that are being put in place. Antibiotic therapy is officially prohibited, but there is really something that I could not understand. Vaccination recommended, but vaccine not authorized and not accessible to farmers. Yes, I understand. These vaccines are the biological, are biological, and they are very sensitive. They are really, they should be kept very carefully. But at the same time, also antibiotic not recommended. But while they are widely available and accessible to farmers who treat their animal freely. Even our veterinarian and para-veterinarian, we also treat animals. Something is wrong. Despite official condemnation, antibiotic treatment is a very common practice in the field. For me, this is really counterproductive. Why? Because despite its prohibition, the practice will certainly increasing due to the privatization of clinical services and increasing the availability of antibiotic. As you know, we are encouraging private pharmaceutical companies. We are encouraging people really to go to the private sector. And we all know, all these really private, they live by selling these drugs. So what to do? This is my question number 2. Instead of blindly condemning the procedure, I think efforts should be made ready to integrate antibiotic in CBP control strategies. This has been already advocating, and now there are growing more and more growing initiatives and ideas among scientific community that is really calling to reconsider these policies by really trying to integrate the antibiotic in the CBP therapy. But there are, of course, we cannot just also call this integration of antibiotic in the CBP control without really having really some prerequisite based on a scientifically and objectively also assess. The first one will be to assess the effect of treatment on the pathogenesis of the disease. I think this has been done quite some time now. Also, to optimize the drug formulation and the regimen for use to meet established and acceptable control criteria. I think Hezron has already preempted on this second proposition, on this second issues. But in any way, these requirements are critically important for consideration of antibiotic in CBP control strategies. This will bring us now to the question number 3. What was known about antibiotic in CBPP? As I said, this is really a very old contested issues, very controversial issues, but yet there are some historical background on this. Okay. At the third FAO OIE at that time, expert panel meeting in CBPP in Khartoum in 1967, it was reported that mass drug or antibiotic treatment of CBPP should be discouraged. Honestly, up to now, I have been looking to try to find on which science-based evidence this statement was made. I couldn't, despite the existence of multiple scientific published work indicating that treatment of CBPP with antibiotic have some benefit. Here they are. Okay, many of them. Of course, all of them are almost in French, but if you try really to look at them, you will find out that all agree that treating the animals may have some effect, may have some benefit effect. However, I ran into this publication that here on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth publication, where it is indicated that treating cattle with norvarosenobenzol, which is not an antibiotic, by the way. This is not really an antibiotic. It is really an arsenic, I think. But at the end, they said that treated animals, developed these sequestra. They were able to reisolate mycoplasma from these sequestra, and they think that this is really the reason why CBPP is spread. I don't know if this is the reason why, at this third FAO expert panel meeting, they were based, I don't know, but I think I ran into this publication. However, as I said before, Windsor and Masiga try really to contest this publication, but yet the controversy is still here. As I said, the lead antibiotic treatment is a very old tested issues. But again, as I said, there is no doubt that since the old days, and based on the studies that I indicated to you, antibiotic therapy was recognized to be clinically improve the outcome of the infection. But why, what went wrong? Why, still we have having this controversy around this issue? Again, as I said, to me, the old starting point came from this publication. When I look at it and when I compare, or when I went through the conclusions that they made, but yet they did not also prove in this publication that animals that have sequestra can also transmit the disease. They couldn't. They even didn't do it. Despite also the opposing of publication made by Windsor, we are still debating. And the frequently debate asked questions include the following. There are 5. Does antibiotic therapy clinically cure CBPP infected cattle? Does it pathologically cure infected CBPP cattle? Does treatment of infected cattle can generate chronic carrier sequestra? And most importantly, does the chronic carrier animals with sequestration disseminate the disease? And does treated cattle transmit the disease? And recently also this issue of AMR came in. The question number 5 is why the sudden renewed interest in this taboo issue? But we have seen recently really that, again, this issue of antibiotic treatment came in. Why? Because of the vaccination failure. There are many meetings and conferences that are calling for greater consideration of the antibiotic treatment of CBPP. And again, recently, to stimulate the debate, Peter Roder, Mark Reimamu, and William Amfu, who is present here, all retired FAOs, initiated debate on the issue through several forums. And I was lucky really to participate on few of these forums. And in all of them, I have been tasked ready to talk about this controversial issue, which is CBPP treatment. I think it was, the initial was already in 1995. And then, these several fora followed. in 2020, in 21, 23, 26. Government itself also were implicated in 2012. And lastly, the recent one was in 2015. And again, I was lucky ready to participate in all these, starting from 2006, 12, and 15. And in all here, I was ready to tackle or to talk on this very complicated issues. But now, do we have data evidence to move forward based on all these fora and based on all the experimental trial that I think Vesonga brought it on already? Do you have data evidence ready to move forward? My answer is yes. In 2015, I was asked ready to go through the literature and ready to compile all the results as it's coming from the experimentation made in Africa. Okay, the following table give you some indication based on the animal experiment carried out in 2003 in many African institutions. The questions that we asked before, which are, can antibiotic therapy clinically cure infected cattle? Based on these experimentation, the answer was yes, no doubt. It was very clear. Does oxytetracycline, when I say oxytetracycline, I really focus on this because this is the molecule that is being used most frequently by our farmer, even by the vet and the paravet. Does oxytetracycline treatment of infected cattle generate or increase the number of chronic carrier? The response is no. Again, no. Contrarily, it may even lower the cattle with the sequestra compared to animals that were not treated. Can the antibiotic treatment significantly reduce the risk of disease transmission? Yes. In our case, based on the published and unpublished data that we conducted in Mali several times, more than 3-5 times, we were never able really to reproduce disease with, by putting animal treated and animal non-treated, sensitive animal non-treated. We were never able to do that. We couldn't. Can the treatment provide complete bacteriological cure of animal with sequestra? The answer also was no. But we were able really to recover some sequestra, some few sequestra that were formatted. We were able really to re-isolate some mycoplasma in these sequestra. And the final question, is there a risk that animal carrying sequestra lung transmit the disease to susceptible animals? In my presentation at that time, I put no. But again, through a long discussion, we finally agreed ready to put negligible to low. Because recovery of mycoplasma in some sequestra, the risk is difficult to assess. We were able to re-isolate in a few sequestra, but these animals could not transmit the disease. But anyway, this is already the summary of the presentation that we made in 2015 based on the literature review on the several experimentation carried out in several African institutions regarding this subject. These results are supported also by other recent similar experimental trial. I think Hezron mentioned them. The third generation macrolide, such as the ones that I name here. This one was, I think, sponsored by government in Zambia, in Kenya, and also the oxytetracycline by itself in Kenya. I think all these results also came with the same conclusion on what we have known already. So based on the various modeling, again, as I said, when I was asked to review, I went through not only on the clinical side, but also I look at on the modeling. Control by animal vaccination, as you know, with current vaccine is technically possible, but eradication is not possible. This is the issue of these vaccines that we have. It appears just that the current vaccination campaign serve only to limit clinical disease to reasonable proportion rather than the eradication of infection. I think Charles Eupanvac provided us a good example on this Senegal. Okay, they were thinking that they can be declared free, but we knew at that time it's not possible. Antibiotic therapy are also associated. This is just
Mamadou,
yes.
You just before 20 seconds we couldn't hear you. Could you please repeat?
Okay, on this slide, I know I have some. I'm seeing here, some unstable, network. What I was saying is that based on the various modeling, I look at not only on the animal experimentation, but also when I was reviewing, I also look at on the modeling studies side. Again, it is indicated that, as you know already, the vaccination campaign with the current vaccine serve only to limit the clinical disease, but the eradication is not possible. A good example is the case of Senegal that Charles Eupanvac mentions. Okay, at one point of time, they thought that they are free. They even wanted to be declared as free, but we knew it's not possible. And in the same year, indeed, they experienced a lot of CBPP outbreak. Just to repeat that with the current vaccine, it is unlikely, based on our experience, based on what we know. Even with mass vaccination campaign over several years, this is really the format that has been advocated to achieve eradication. It's not possible. Just really to think on how really to reformat, to include, to revise these policies, to include, other strategies, including really antibiotic therapy. For me, really, this is an alternative approach. But the question 7 is how to go about this antibiotic. It's not just really talking, but we should also think how really to go about it. The option, including really bringing in the option of antibiotic in the CBP control strategies. This is next question. The approach is to integrate antibiotic in CBP control strategies. I think this is Jeff Mariner, that you know very well, who really came up with some of these ideas. But just to remind you that 3 main classes of antibiotic are effective against mycoplasma. I think Hezron also preempted on this. We know also the existence of recently approved 3rd generation of macrolide that are also very efficient. Jeff Mariner, he brought up 2 common approaches. One, the elective optional strategies. Now, this is really public good versus private good. In this way, I think we have to opt for CBP to be private good. Determined by the livestock keeper. I think this is really the owners themselves really who should decide. It is a question of integrating the vaccination of healthy animals with the treatment of sick animals to improve the condition of the animal for slaughter. Okay, as I said, this is really public good versus the private good. Should CBPP be considered as a private good? Yes, we can go with this option. Livestock keeper can adopt a private individual management of the disease so that they will be allowed to treat clinical disease in a well-framed strategy through authorized agent. This is really the important role of the government. They need to make it, yes, you can authorize it, but in a well-framed strategy through authorized agent. Must be really a strict control again on this. The second option is targeted use of antibiotic to reduce shedding. Okay, this involves regularly vaccinating cattle while treating sick animals. And we think isolating individual animal when they develop clinical disease will be, again, should be considered. And in this way, the benefit of vaccination, as we know, increases, okay, the high level of herd immunity, plus treating animals with the benefit of saving animals that might have died, would, I think, synergistically with together really reduce the losses. But again, we should keep in mind that in both cases, by reducing duration of the clinical phases, is really very important also. The escalation, transmission, the incidence, and the mortality of CBPP antibiotic treatment would bring a plus, an added value. But how to implement such strategies? I think, again, Hezron preempted on our ideas on this. This has been discussed already one during the forum organized by PRAPS in Ouagadougou. Chokur, François Chokur, Sirad, Charles Bozo, Iyo Abar, and myself, I think we really discussed on this. Unfortunately, it did not go through for maybe some financial reason. But the proof of concept is really should be considered. So first, we have to develop a profile of antibiotic to be used. We cannot just really go about and authorize all the antibiotics. No, we should really study and define the profile of the antibiotics that we should be used. Then we conduct a pilot studies as part of a proof of concept, really just to showcase, to demonstrate that CBPP can be indeed controlled by combining vaccination with rational, again, I may insist, rational and regulated use of antibiotic. The third, involve livestock. In this case, we have really to involve also livestock owner to understand. This is really something that we are missing. They are treating, but why? They maybe have another mechanism also to cope. What are they? We really need really to collect the traditional knowledge, attitude, perception, and practicing to generate information for use during sensitization exercise. You see, we have been said, okay, it's forbidden, but yet they are using it. But maybe we are missing something. Really, we have to go and really and discuss with them and to find out what are the reasons that they have behind this idea. Collection and analysis of the expertise of herder on the use of antibiotic. Have adequate distribution system. Very important, I think. Again, really, as I said, the government are encouraging the private sector, okay, to be put in place. But these private sector are always selling them. We have really to find a way to, find a way to limit, or I say to guide, the distribution system, especially for the remote area. Again, remember that these vaccines are sold everywhere. In the remote area, we have no control. So I think this is really proof concept that we are thinking. But again, this risk of antibiotic resistance has been already mentioned throughout already this workshop. But we will see, this is also a very complex issue. We cannot just isolate mycoplasma, CBPP, and blame CBPP as really the reason for this issue of antibiotic resistance. It's not fair. The proposal, as I said, François Chokuro, Charles Bozo, EU Panvac, and myself, I think we discussed and we already frame, this a proposal, not a proposal, but at a note on this proposal of proof of concept. We said that it will be maybe good to define an area, hotspot, where we vaccinate all the healthy animals, 100%, treat all the antibiotic, the sick animal, and follow up regularly. But again, this is really a summary of the protocols that we made. I don't know if I can find it, but or if Charles or if Francois can find it, but it was presented during the perhaps meeting, I think it was in Ouagadougou, I can't remember now the year, it was 2018, something like this. And we hope that result from these proof of concept may provide additional solid science-based evidence needed to amend the WOAH terrestrial animals. I know it's not easy, but let's try. Question number 9, what are the key practical challenges? Of course, it's obvious. There are many challenges that we may face, including, especially, in the area where disease is endemic. I know there are a lot of implications. Integrated strategy must be carefully designed. Again, I repeat, and properly implemented in consideration of the following parameters. We know antibiotic use in Africa is most of the time suboptimal. Why? Many reasons. The quality of the product is not tested. It is there everywhere. Storage conditions, again, are not controlled. It is there in an open area, no control, nothing. Administration protocol are not optimized. Again, everybody can do it the way he think it, he should do it. Even us, vet, we all do this. We are even knowing exactly what to do. Again, these unregulated uses. I think these are just some challenges that we may face, among many others that I did not cite, that I did not mention. But there are also some practical implications coming from these challenges. The timing to treat clinical cases of CBPP. As we know, sometimes it is very difficult really to diagnose clinically at the early stage of the animals. And I believe when the animal really have this acute lesion, a lot of pleural fluid, even if you put tons and tons of antibiotic, I doubt if you will be able really to save this animal. Underdosing due to wide range of concentration. Again, there are many concentrations there. The condition of these antibiotics, there are many, 30%, 5%, and so on. It is very, really difficult for our farmer really also to distinguish the various concentrations that are there in the field. And treating infected animals would pose a serious risk to treat animals once the antibiotic effect had waned. And most importantly, the waiting time. This is the issue that we are having. You treat animal today, it dies tomorrow, and the meat, the milk, all are consumed. Antibiotic cannot replace vaccination. I agree. Totally agree. Alone, it will not also provide control eradication. So it must be a combination of both vaccination and treatment. My conclusion, really, based on all what I have said, based on my own experience, based on my own literature review, eradication of CBPP in the near future, to me, will be difficult, honestly, with existing policies which are not only inappropriate, but not properly implemented. We are solely hoping on these vaccines. Yes, they are there, but despite 100 tentatives to improve this vaccine, we couldn't. Up to now, we are using the same vaccines, meaning that it will be very difficult really to come up with a solid vaccine like we have seen with rinderpest or PPR. But for me, this is the nature of the mycoplasma antigen itself. No matter you do, you will be facing these immunity, this long-term immunity. The antigen of the mycoplasma are not just immunogen as we think. Myself, for maybe 10 years or so, we try also to try to improve this vaccine by doing the recombinant LDS, lamplicin disease virus plus mycoplasma microdis, but honestly, we failed. We couldn't. Hence, we should really review to rationally to include really the antibiotic option. As of today, as I said, we have now, at least for me, we have really enough baseline ready to move forward. We have been repeating these experimentation, clinical experimentation. We are also always having the same result. Need of proof of concept based on what we have said. I think we have really to go and really to find out a way to demonstrate that CBPP can be controlled by combining vaccination with rational and regulated use of antibiotic. To remind you, this really bothered me a lot. CBPP is victim of antibiotic therapy. Most treatments are probably not specifically aimed at CBPP, but why then we are just solely pointing out on this disease? Why? It is simply a common practice in the field. You, me, the farmer, everybody is treating. It's not just against the CBPP, but it's against all the infectious diseases. So why just pointing out on CBPP? I think this really should be tackled in a global way. Formation of sequestra is part of the normal healing process. No matter what you do, treated or not treated, animals tend ready to develop sequestra. We even have seen the opposite. Antibiotic treatment can reduce the formation of sequestra. Role of small animal, I don't know. Maybe, I know we are worried about this transmission. Why not also try to see another source of transmission? Maybe small animals. We know now, we can isolate Mycoplasma microdes from these small ruminants. Maybe they can be source of this, spreading the animals, the disease. In any way, rational use of antibiotic can reduce the number of antibiotic treatment. Now, talking for the AMR, I think by integrating this antibiotic in the control or eradication strategy of CBPP, we can really find a way to reduce the number of antibiotic treatment. And we can also reduce the AMR. And the research on formulation and treatment regimen deserve the same level of attention as we are really trying to put on development of the vaccine. I think this is really my own thinking, my own point of view. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.